Hey folks, Tom your FrugalPrepper. So I'm working on my $400 Buick Lucerne. So this car has never had an EVAP leak code, and all of a sudden it got a large EVAP leak code. I can't show you the code because I cleared it because I was working on some other codes. I wanted to see if they came back. It hasn't run a drive cycle yet for this, but what I always check first on these GM 3.8s and other GMs that have this type of EVAP solenoid is whether the EVAP solenoid is closed. So right now the car is off. It shouldn't have any voltage. This EVAP solenoid should be closed. Should not pass air in either direction. You could use a vacuum gauge for this, or you can just hook on a piece of tubing and it's allowing air through it. Both ways. Not a lot of air, but I'm just blowing in the end of the tube, and it's allowing air through it. So if I get a new EVAP solenoid right here, this is just a cheapy one off of eBay. All right, and yes, you should run genuine GM parts, but I don't. And so we do the same thing on this one. If I blow through it, no air passes through this at all. So I gotta get my spit out of it. There, okay. No air passes through it. And so the main thing is even more, you might get just a little bit of flow sucking on it, but when you blow on it, you should have no flow at all, because that's what it's doing, is taking that vacuum off the manifold on this side, and it should close that vacuum off so the tank can build pressure, and then it decides when the fuel tank pressure gets high enough to turn this on to drain the vapors out of the tank. So you may get just a little bit, but very little coming out when you're sucking on it, but blowing on it, it should be absolutely rock solid, no leaks. If you're going to do it with a vacuum gauge, you have to hook the vacuum gauge to this side, suck on it, and there's no air. So and also there shouldn't be as much of a suction leak as this one has. And that tells me that this one's malfunctioning, and it's not blocking the airflow. So to change this, we're just going to pull our connector off, and you have to pull this tube off right here too. Now most of these tubes have a little clip in them that you have to push and take out. My clip's missing, but that's okay. It holds on there tight enough. It will stay on there. And there's one 10mm bolt on it that holds it in somewhere. Nope. It's right there. And we just take our 10mm socket and our extension, and we'll go ahead and change that out. Oh, there we go. We got it broke loose. Now we can just take it the rest of the way out. Careful not to drop the bolt. What that's doing is allowing the tank. Oh yeah, she's leaking. It allows it to draw a vacuum here and pull air from the tank when it's supposed to be sealed off. So the fuel tank pressure sensor sees a slight vacuum on the tank and it says, this isn't building pressure, there must be a large leak. So we'll put the new one on. It just goes down in here. Just push it in nice and slow around that rubber seal. If that rubber seal just won't pass, you might have to put a little bit of WD-40 or something on it to kind of lube it up going in there. But this one went in okay. And we just put our bolt back in. Now you can hook up the smoke machine, pump some smoke down this tube, and see if you got any leaks. But I'm pretty sure this is going to be the leak, and so I'm just going to put this in here, and then we're going to test it and see if the code comes back. And this, I just push this thing on here real good, and it'll stay on there just fine without the clip. This also has a little valve here. You can hook a smoke machine to if you want to pump smoke in that way. And that's handy in case you're trying to see if that smoke's coming through the purge valve, which I don't know how you'd notice that other than you'd have to take this rubber hose off and see if you have smoke coming back out that way when this valve is supposed to be closed. If you wanted to do a real official diagnosis, you could do that if you have a smoke machine. My smoke machine's a pretty cheap one, but it works. But I'm not even going to do a smoke machine on this one because it's a large EVAP leak, and that's 9 times out of 10 that's what it is on these GMs. But you can definitely test it just by blowing and sucking on this thing, and then you'll know. If that's not it, then you've got a leak somewhere else in the system between the tank and all that. So that's that. She fixed. This is a pretty simple one. You know, these things are like $15 on eBay, or they're like, you know, $100 if you buy them from GM dealership. But I'm sure this one probably won't last as long as a genuine Delco one, but it's good enough, and it'll get me by for quite a while, I'm sure. So that's that. Next thing we got to diagnose is the wheel speed sensor on this guy, and we got to change the catalytic converter, and she's going to be ready for her trip to Florida. I'm going to the Florida Auto Care Alliance event, and I'm going to try driving this down there. I don't know, the main bearings are about to go in it. When I changed the oil, man, it knocked a little bit when I first started up till it got that filter primed. And usually what these engines do is they drop a main bearing, they lose oil pressure, and then it's over. But, you know, if it does die on the way down there, I'm going to rent me a truck and a car dolly, and I'm going to bring it back. Because me and this car are never separating. They don't make Buick Lucernes anymore. They don't make cars that are big fluffy couches cruising down the road anymore. So I want to keep this one going. I will find another engine and put in it. But it still runs good and strong and everything. I think it'll be okay. So that's that. Talk to you later. It's Tom at Frugal Prepper.